It's summer, and I want to tell you stories, but not just any stories. These are raw, real life stories about all the different things I wanted to do with my life and how I process them as purpose. I'm starting part 1 of 6 today, and the first category is singing. The summer series, The Other Sides, begins now. What is going on? Welcome to my summer series of Coleman On Purpose. This is David J. Coleman, and I am so excited that you have stopped by to listen to another one of my podcast chapters. This is really exciting because I had this idea to do something for the summertime. A lot of my stuff has been very centered on being kind of a thought-provoking and stuff like that, and I wanted to have a little outlet this summer for us to have some fun, tell some stories, do some things on here that I have been wanting to do for a while, and finding a way to work them into this platform. It's been interesting, but this is my summer series, and I've entitled this The Other Sides. So this is going to run for 6 different chapters. It's actually going to be broken down into it's going to be chapter 20. This is the 20th chapter, but it's going to be broken up into 6 different sections. And this is the great part about purpose, because you don't have to have everything figured out. And that's kind of what this whole series is going to be talking about. So it's going to break down everything that I've thought was my purpose and things that I wanted to do with my life, little by little by little. So there'll be a section on singing, acting, writing, being an artist, a teacher, even a preacher. So we'll go into all of those things, and I'll be telling very interesting stories, which you might not have known. A lot of people would know this, but even people that have known me for a while don't know the ins and outs of a lot of different things. And this will go through a lot of different things. It'll go back to some of my church life, some of my college life, different things like that. So we're going to have a great time. So I hope you will stick around and listen to this entire chapter, because it's going to be a blast. So we're going to start with this first other sides, which is singing. And I have to go back to my earliest recollections of singing. And of course, my singing, or the recollection of singing that I have, is from church. So everything begins in church with me. That's where I kind of started everything. That's where I kind of figured out, life at. It was all during the process of being in church. Like I said, I was born on the pews, so I basically was there all the time in church, vacation Bible school, all these different things that I've done it within church. So I grew up listening to music from CCM artists. So a CCM artist would be a contemporary Christian music artist, which would have been the likes of maybe a Sandy Patty. You can look that up. Amy Grant, BB and CC Winans. It can be a variety. Not praise and worship music really wasn't in CCM. It's become a lot more popular now, because now we have like the Elevations and the Bethels and different things like that, and Hillsong. So we have all of those examples of how contemporary Christian music has kind of changed, and praise and worship has kind of been involved with that now. So I listened to that type of music, and it was way different back then. I remember like Hosanna and all that, the other stuff that they had back then. As a child, I remember listening to like Salty, the singing songbook. These are things that you might not know of, but Gospel Duck, it was things like that. So that's how I remembered a lot of my songs. A lot of those songs I still have in my head, believe it or not. Growing up as, just being a child and remembering songs and different things that we used to do for devotions and stuff, it would all be in my head. So I remember a specific singer at the church I was going to at the time. Her name was Nanette. I can say her name, Nanette. And she sang, and she was a high soprano. She always sung very high. She reminded me of like the Black Sandy Patty, because her voice was that beautiful, that gorgeous. And she always reminded me of like the Black Sandy Patty, because she used to sing some of her songs too at church. And I was always so intrigued. I used to like look at her and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I love that. And love she was holding the silver mic, and she used to practice. I remember this silver boom box that she used to like have she used to practice on. I remember these things. This is so crazy. And I remember one day asking her about singing one day, day, and I was like, how can I learn how to sing, or what are ways that I can sing? And I think she wanted to teach me a little bit. And I don't remember if we had maybe like a few sessions where she let me like hold the mic and do a few things, but I always wanted to sing. So I do remember through that time of being in St. Louis and going to that church and all of those things, I always wanted to, sing. So I was introduced to singing a little bit later on in third grade when I had a teacher named Miss Bruder. I still remember her name to this day, and she introduced me to Broadway and singing. So I never knew that you could sing and act at the same exact time. So I wanted to start doing, I wanted to start learning how to sing and act. And I remember us doing a rendition of Cats back in the day when I was in elementary school. And from that moment on, I was always getting, other Broadway tapes from maybe the library or different things that I could listen to, because it was outside of the realm of like Christian music. So Broadway was a little step forward into maybe some things that I could, listen to without getting in trouble. Let's put it that way. So my family ended up moving to Ohio. My dad was a pastor, so he got a pastoring I don't know what's called a job or a pastoring setup in Ohio, and we had to move from St. Louis. And so I still loved to sing back then, and I can just remember leaving that atmosphere in St. Louis and having to move to Ohio. And it was way different because I went into this church that was, my dad's church was pretty small at the time in Dayton. And, I was running like the praise and worship, not running the praise and worship team, but we didn't even have a team. We just sang from tapes. So I ran the tapes, and then eventually I would start singing before my dad would go and preach at certain places. So he would have these different events, and he knew that I could sing, and there were different things that I had been practicing, and he really asked me if I was serious about singing. I remember my dad, and he had me practice these songs. Now, these were not songs that you would know nowadays. I remember a song called Touch Your People Once Again. These were songs that were definitely Christian. I don't know about contemporary, but they were very inspirational, anointed songs. Like they were very word-filled songs. It had to be very Bible-based. And so I was singing songs like that as a 13 or 12-year-old, 11, however old I was like 11 to 13. I was singing these deep songs, and I wonder why sometimes I'm so deep to this day. Like I was singing songs like this at a young age, and it would touch people. It was a good time. I enjoyed doing it. So even though I was doing these songs and learning these songs, my dad stayed a pastor in Dayton for a while before he stopped pastoring there, and we ended up joining another church. And this church was way different than the church I went to in St. Louis, and even how my dad's church was run in Dayton. And oh my goodness, yes. And it was Revival Center Ministries, and it's still going strong today. Revival Center Ministries was a core of who and I became and who I am today, because it introduced me to different types of music too. A lot of the songs like gospel, I don't even think I really knew gospel when I got to Revival Center. So I was introduced to people like, let's see, Fred Hammond, Kirk Franklin, Crystal Lewis. Oh, I knew Crystal Lewis a little bit before because my brother introduced me to that because he went to Stanford and he was a little bit more exposed to some things. So Crystal Lewis was around that time. That was around the same time though. So my brother introduced me to Crystal Lewis, and then we had Grits. I learned from Goatee because I loved Out of Eden 2 and Gospel Gangsters. I don't know if y'all know these people, but y'all can look these up. Like this was what I listened to growing up. This was the core of who I was. So I was listening to these songs. Oh my gosh, me and my friend Jess used to always talk about this song called with that okie doke. It was some song that was on, like it must have been like Gospel Gangsters or something. I really want to go and find this song because we used to we just knew it was cool because we was listening to this music that was, it was hype. It was good music. And that's how I started to learn different types of music. So in that time, as I was still doing solos and occasionally I would sing at Revival Center, and I can remember me trying to change my technique of singing after, like, around the time I was in a revival center. I was still singing similar songs to what I was singing back in Dayton, but then I was listening to people like Fred Hammond and, listening to Kirk Franklin, the hype music and stuff like that. Now, I still was listening to my Carmen and contemporary Christian music and stuff like that, but this new type of singing was like, I really want to sing like that too. So I began to try some new things with my voice and learn how to sing some things, but it didn't always quite work out because I could not do the riffs and runs like everybody. And I should have been in a vocal class at that time because I was straining my voice. When we talk about straining my voice, I was straining my entire voice because I was trying to sing up in the heavens like Fred Hammond, which I should not have been doing because Fred Hammond has an instrument. He has a horn. He has a total different type sound on his voice that it's very impossible. I don't even know how he does it. He sings into the stratosphere, and I was trying to do that too, and that wasn't working. But I went ahead and I should have been in vocal classes at that time or trying to change, just perfect the voice that I had originally, because in that time my voice was getting a little deeper, cracking was happening, changes were happening to my voice, and at the time when I should have probably been working on switching around my technique or finding ways to work with the new voice that I was getting, I was trying to sing into the heavens and still keep that high voice that I had back in the day. So I kind of understand why Michael Jackson did what he did back in the day when he wanted to have like that very high pitched voice, and he kept that for a long time, or he would talk very low. It's like said that he used to use that high voice, but he did have a deeper voice, but he always talked in a higher voice so he could keep that high voice that everybody loved when he was little. And that's kind of how I felt because I did not keep that same high voice as when I was little and I was singing things. But nevertheless, I was still going to be involved in things. I still wanted to do things within, the community, even singing at church. But then I took it outside of the church and I wanted to be in a competition because around this time, Sister Act 2 was out and I was seeing all these competitions going on. And I was like, oh, wow, singing competition or choir competitions. I need to be in a competition to see how well I can sing. So I remember reading, there was this, I don't remember what the name of the newspaper was. I think it was called like the Christian Gazette. I don't remember what it was. It was some Christian newspaper. And I saw this top flight teen competition thing in the newspaper. It was like a whole thing that came out at the Christian bookstore. And I was like, ooh, it costs a little bit of money to enter, but it's real cheap. And I want to enter that competition. So there was a song that I had been singing, that Touch Your People Once Again. I wore that song out. When I tell you, you talk about a song that was played out, Touch Your People Once Again, I was singing that a lot. So I knew that song very well. So I was like, well, let me do the Touch Your People Once Again. That might be a good song to like get in the mix and start to learn. So I or learn better or try to perfect it before I went into, this competition. So I eventually entered the competition, and I just knew at that time, like if you could have asked me my purpose back in like 1995, I would have told you I'm going to be a singer. I'm going to record albums. I'm going to be the next Carmen. I just knew that was my purpose. And I really wanted to do that because I used to sit in my room with the tape recorder, redub my voice over, and just make albums. I still have some of those tapes to this day of some of my old, like, albums that I really knew I had. I would make covers for them and everything. I was just creating because I wanted to just have fun with music. And I can remember sitting up there all that time and really trying to come up with a way to make sure that my purpose, or what I thought was my purpose, came to pass. So this competition was my first step forward, and I ended up winning that very first year that I did the competition. And so then I believe the church kind of played a role in pumping my head up a little bit, like I was just like a great singer, because I remember my youth pastor at the time, Brother Mike, he used to be like, oh my gosh, you are the top flight team competition champion of Dayton, Ohio. Like, and I was like just feeling myself at the time. I was really feeling myself. Like, I needed that confidence, I think, at the time though. So it was helpful for me. And I know they probably knew that I might need the confidence because I was very shy when it came to church. But when I got up on the stage or did stuff off of just being just a social person, that would light me up. So like singing was like that outlet, that artistic outlet for me outside of like school and band and all the things that I was doing at the time. So I was feeling great, laid. Like I was like, oh my gosh, I'm the greatest singer right now in Dayton. I'm gonna go ahead and do wonderful things, and I can't wait to get into these studios and show these people what I got. I'm gonna be the next Larnell Harris. If y'all don't know these names, you need to go look them up because I remember all of these Christian artists, from back in the day. I said I'm gonna be the next Larnell Harris up in here. Y'all can't tell me nothing. Then the game changer came. The second year, I entered Top Flight. I was like, okay, I'm coming back. I'm about to make it's gonna be a two-time win with Top Flight. I'm coming back to sweep the category. I said I'm about to come up in here and do this thing. And I remember the song I sang. It was called Feel the Nails by Ray Boltz. Yes, I still remember the song. It was a deep song again. And I remember going to Top Flight, and I don't know what happened, but there was an individual that decided to join the competition. I don't know if I told him about the competition or someone else told him about the competition, but it was a guy from my church. His name was Corey. And I still remember to this day that he was getting ready to enter the competition. I'm trying to put on my best face, like, good luck with everything. Like, this Top Flight meant a lot to me at the time. I was like, you know what? This means a lot to me. This competition is really, I'm riding on it, and I'm gonna need to win this. And so we got up in there, and Corey could play the piano. He could sing with riffs and runs and do everything that, of course, I wanted to be able to do. But he got up there and blew these people out the water and blew me out of the water. And I lost that competition that year of Top Flight. I was like, oh, I was so, let me tell you, as a 16-year-old or however old I was at the time, I was so defeated because that was my thing. That was my that's my bread and butter. I'm the Top Flight team champion of Dayton, Ohio at the time, and this is my purpose. This is what I'm walking toward. This is what I want to do with my life. I want to sing. So when I found out somebody could definitely blow me out the water and sing better than me, I said, oh. And so I believe that was like the starting point of some of my insecurities and knowing that I was not going to always be the best at everything I did. And not that I was not the best, just not the best in the world. Like I was like, I should have been confident enough to know in myself that I was good at what I did, but that should be enough. But at that time, that didn't mean anything. And I was like, oh my gosh, I really lost that year. And it was an experience. And I think it did change what I thought my purpose was at the time because, in order to be, have purpose, you got to be the best. That's what I thought at the time. You have to be the best, and it has to be, you have to be the reigning person in order for you to walk in your purpose. And I really don't know where I got that kind of idea from. Maybe it was from watching competitions or watching people win or win awards and how important awards were at the time. But it really did change my perspective. And I think it's so interesting that our brains remember these pivotal moments in our lives. And it always kind of shifts and shapes how we view things. So after the competition loss, I started to invest time in another one of my gifts, which was writing. And I love to write because I was like, okay, if this is not going to work, I have other artistic gifts that I can use. So let me start writing. And I began writing plays, and I started getting into all of those writing things, but I'm going to save that for the writing portion of, my summer series. So come back in and listen to some more of the summer series. But in this particular one of singing, I was just exploring what I could do at that time, and I was exploring who and what I could listen to at the time. So I began to expand. And because I wanted to do riffs and runs and high notes, I determined that I needed to listen to people outside of the realm of CCM or even gospel. And that's when I began to listen to other people, kind of like the Beyoncés, the Destiny's Child, the Toni Braxtons, Whitney Houstons, the Ushers, all of those people, or what we call back in the day secular music. I started to involve myself with because I was like, I need to learn how to do everything so I can be the best if I still want to do this singing too. If I want to just come back and maybe beat him next year when I come back. So next year I made sure that I entered 2 competitions. I was like, I'm not just entering one singing because I'm going to win something. So I made sure I entered 2 different things so that just in case Corey came back, I was going to win. I don't even know why that meant so much to me at the time just to win this competition, but it was like, it just made me feel like I was walking in my purpose. So I still wanted to sing. I was writing too, and I was just trying to make sure I perfected everything because I could be a triple threat. So I was making sure that I involved myself with a lot of different things artistically. And At that time, I really should have known that I I didn't have to try to reduplicate my voice or make myself sound like anybody else in order to feel like I was good enough. At that time, I felt like I was doing that because I didn't have the risk to run. So I remember I had chosen for the next year I went to Top Flight. I chose a slow song, the one that, I made sure I had one that's anointed, that reach into the heavens and real deep. And then I made sure I had a fast song. It was a song by Anointed called The Word. And I was like, let me make sure I have a fast song in here so I can kind of keep up with what everybody else is doing and be kind of hip with it. And in that time, I should have known. I should have known that that was not what I needed to do. I should have known within myself that I had everything that I needed within me to do everything that I wanted to do. I do realize in this life now that everyone is not Faith Evans. Everyone is not Kelly Price. Everyone's not Fred Hammond. Everyone's not Whitney, Usher, Tony, Michael Jackson, Mariah. They have what they have for a reason, and it is their gift and their gift alone. Nobody else can have the gift that you have. So even though I may have sung differently than the winner of that competition of Corey winning that year, I still had something within me that was different. And me losing that competition didn't make a difference if I was good enough or not. But in my mind at the time, that was all that I had, or all I had to hold on to. But as I began to expand, that I do kind of I thank Corey, because at that time I know he's out there doing his thing still out here. I thank him because there were lessons that I learned at that time in my life. Even though I was young, it shaped who and what I would become, and my strength and belief in my separate gifts that no one else can do. So even though he had that gift of piano playing and singing, I knew that I had separate gifts from him that I could do on my own. And I think that's the most important part, that we have to understand, that we can't be a duplicate of anyone else. This ain't the Little Mermaid. We have to let people have their gifts, and we have to study to improve our gifts, but we have to make our voices our own. We have to have our own voices. We have to be individual from what everyone else is doing. And that's how you find your purpose along the way. That's how you get into those rooms and you do those things that nobody else is doing. It is finding that uniqueness within yourself and fully jumping into it and riding with it and knowing that what you have is enough. And needless to say, the next year I entered the competition. I did won that year. And then I ended up going back to last year and I only sang one time, and I still won that year because I started to build confidence within myself and the gifts that I had. And I said, I'm coming back in this competition. It was either that, or my parents just didn't have enough money to put me into two competitions again. It was one or the other. It was something, but I just knew that I wanted to be in that competition again and go out in style and win my last year at Top Flight. But it was so interesting because during all of that time, I just knew that I had what it took to be a singer. I knew I had what it took to be a singer, but I needed to know in my mind that even if it is not my purpose, or even if it's not my final call, like whatever I'm really supposed to be out here doing, it's part of my gift. It's part of something that people love. People love to hear me sing. They used to come up and just tell me to continue to sing and do things. And I'm not sure if it was the words of the songs or if there was really something special about my voice when I was singing. I just knew that people were drawn to me singing. And at that time, I really should have taken it in a lot more and continued honing my gift. I remember going through a lot of different things. I went on to sing musicals in college. I sang even while I was in high school a little bit. And then I worked at a dinner theater when I came out here. We'll get into more of that in the later summer series, because it's so interesting how each one of these topics that I'm talking about connects to part of my purpose. And I know that it is, because for me to be on this role for so long and having so many twists and turns and times in my life that I've had to walk through and go through things, I know that there's something that is connected with arts and entertainments to part of my purpose. I don't know how it's all going to play out or what it's going to be, but I know it's going to be dynamic as it begins to show itself. And it's already showing itself now by me even sharing these parts of my story with you and these parts of my life, which were very fun, very interesting, but it really helps me to understand and build that confidence even now as a 40-year-old, just knowing that what I have is special, and every single person that is on this earth has that one special thing, or those many special things that make them them. And that is your purpose. That's what you walk into. That's what you move forward in. And I just wanted to encourage y'all today to keep doing that. And I want to thank you for joining me for this first part of my summer series. I have so much more coming up with my summer series. Make sure you are following me on YouTube. I am on YouTube now at Deluxe Dave. You can also follow me on Instagram at Deluxe Dave, also DeluxeDave. And if you're on TikTok, go ahead and follow me there too. I'm doing better at posting on TikTok, a little something. So make sure you follow me on there. I'm at davidj.coleman, or you can just type in Deluxe Dave, and I believe you can still find me on TikTok under Deluxe Dave also. Once again, I want to thank you so much for joining me for this first part of my summer series. Please remember that you are unique, you are loved, and you are created for greatness. Till I see you next time. Holla.